in ministry, there are those times you just say, what are we doing that's doing any good? Are we doing any good? And then there's that one time. And we all say this, right? How many, I mean, you don't even have to raise your hand. Just think about it. How many times have we said, if we can just reach one person? If we could just reach one. And I don't even know if we're happy with that. I think we say it to justify our cause, but I don't even know if we're happy with just one person. Even though one person's life is worth, one person's life, when you get to heaven, it talks about heaven, there is a rejoicing in heaven. There's a party going on when one person gives their life to Jesus Christ. It's huge. But whenever we're here, it's one person gives their life to Jesus, and we say yes, but then you go home and you're like, man, why didn't more people do it? Why didn't more people? I mean, because we always want more. But it is true. If one, it's totally worth it. If one gives their life to Jesus Christ. Right now, online or here, if one person does, a rejoicing in heaven. There's that morning that I guess God wanted to show me. I put all my videos online. I put our church services online. And one morning, you know me, all of you know me, I don't wake up early. Ain't gonna happen. I'm laying there and my phone rings. Online, I put online if you want to talk to a pastor. We also put all the videos. We put all that. And at 5:30, 6 in the morning, I get a phone call. I'm not making fun of the person, but this is just what I heard. So, and the reason I say that is because it may sound like I'm mocking this person, but I'm not. At 5:30, 6 in the morning, I'm waking up. This is what I heard. What? And it repeated. I won't do it again because that was awful. Just can't recognize a word until about the third or fourth time. Toned down. And the lady said, I was watching your video and I decided to call you because my niece is in, what's the worst one? In the hospital. Not the emergency room, but the ICU. Thank you. I was going to use those letters, just couldn't remember which way they went. UCI, hospital, I don't know, ICU. All right, so she's in ICU. She's not expected to live, and I'm calling you because I was watching your video, and they were sitting in the waiting room. That's all you can do. So she's going through YouTube. And she goes, I knew I had to call you. And she's there, her family's there, the dad of the daughter is there, the mom, the grandparents, everyone is in this waiting room. She said she wanted me to pray, and we did. I talked to the father. He actually kept it together more than she did, the aunt. Obviously, he's already to that phase. You know, there's phases. And he was at that phase. He was able to have a conversation with me. His daughter is in there so messed up that they're only giving her a limited time that they're going to keep her on life support. They're trying a few things, but she's so messed up it's not going to possibly happen. But she called off a video that we have on YouTube. So I started listening to the story and prayed with them, and then they got a call a few hours later. And the lady said, I just want to tell you something. She goes, I was in the waiting room and I watched your video before I called you this morning. She said, I'm an agnostic. She goes, there's no way ever that I would have called you. She goes, I've seen videos like yours before and I would just pass right by it. So whenever my family came in, and they're all coming at different times, and she said, we're all in the waiting room, and then she goes, I hold up my phone, and I say, you guys have to listen to this guy. This is who I called this morning. And they just looked at her like in amazement. And they go, what do you mean we need to listen? They go, did you listen? She goes, I listened to the whole thing. That's why I called him. I knew I had to call him. I'm like, you know what? I probably need to hear that as much as she needed to hear from God. I mean, it's just here, God's using me to help them and with prayer and getting them some resources that we were able to reach out for. But at the same time, just saying, wow, God, things we don't even know is happening. And God's using it from some small church of 50 people or less. It's just neat to see that God just uses that in the worst of circumstances. There couldn't be a worse circumstance for that family. Later on, she calls back, and she said it's getting worse. They're pretty much thinking that she only has a small amount of time left. And they're thinking about, should they just go ahead and take her off life support or not? But the dad went down to the chapel and he prayed. And he said, God, you can take her if you know that she's right with you. Then you can take her. But if she's not right with you, then you heal her. You give her life. You know what that father knew? That we as Christians know? That you move into eternity, heaven or hell. And people that really understand that knows that when you take your last breath, it's over. You're going to the destination that you chose here. People always say, oh, God's not going to throw people into hell. He's too good of a God. Or why would a good God do that? No, God gives us a choice in that lifespan that we have. Whatever amount of time that is, we choose where we want to go in the next place, the eternal life. This is temporary. The Bible, Paul and Peter both explain this. This is a shell. Paul talks about it being a tent. You know what a tent is? You go camping in? It's temporary. It's not your home. You sleep in a tent because you're going somewhere else. This shell that we're in houses who we are. They both explain this. When they die, they are instantly with the Father. What? Your body's here. Yes, because that's the tent. That's the shell that houses your spirit. Your soul is within. That's what lives for eternity. And you know what? Jesus gives us a promise. He says that when we leave this shell, He has a new home for us in heaven, a new place. Why do we think it's going to be a building like this? Our spirit doesn't need that. He said there's no sleep. What do we need that for? No, you need a place for your spirit. He's got a new body for you. Now, everybody has their opinion on this. This is totally what I perceive this means. When we get to heaven, we'll find out who's right. Not a heaven or hell issue. If it's a house and I said it was a body, hey, I still get to go to heaven. It was one of those. But just putting the pieces together, your soul needs a body. And He says He prepared one for you. And it's never going to get sick. It's never going to have cancer. Never going to have COVID. Amen. You won't need a booster or the 5th booster. Isn't that going to be amazing? It's going to be amazing because then, people always say, well, then what do you do then? We're going to live like what God designed us to live like here. You know what He said? He's creating a new heaven and a new earth. Everybody thinks we're just stuck in heaven, because there's different heavens. There's heaven, the place where God exists, and then heavens, which is like the other planets, and then there's earth, which is where we're at now. So new heavens and a new earth. Can you wait for that? Anybody like me? I'm excited about this. We get to go from one place to another place, and guess what? We're going to be able to go and not have to worry about getting sick. I can't travel there because I'm sick today. We couldn't go to Hawaii because Hannah had COVID. Where is she at? Bad. No. But we won't have to worry about that when we get to heaven. We can go wherever because we won't be getting sick anytime soon, ever. If you're blind or have a body, anything physically wrong, imagine getting to heaven. No pain, no suffering, no helmets. It's all good. We forget that. We focus on what we can do here, how much money we have, how much life we can live out here, how much and how many things and all of this, and we forget it's such a short time. It's just a short time for eternity. This lady that called me, and she's agnostic, and her brother, who is her daughter, his daughter that's in the ICU, he had the right thing. Now, she didn't, but she was getting it. Isn't it funny that God took time to make sure that she could connect with him? She called a pastor. I ended up calling a church local to them. They were in another state. I called a church. We got them connected. The church came up there, visited them, brought them food and other things, but just took care of them. The dad went for a walk after going to the chapel and praying and just saying, God, if she's good with you, then it's okay. So he went for a walk for about a mile. See, there's a story in the Bible. It's in Genesis 5 and 6. First of all, if you're one of those people like me that just needs to know, read Genesis 5. Do the math. All these people have all these visions and thoughts and stupid ideas, crazy ideas about how many millions and billions of years that we've been here. The Bible tells us. And in fact, it's so well documented for humanity in the Genesis 5 that it tells you from Adam till the flood of the exact amount of years. It's crazy. Am I wrong on that? We got two scientists here. Hey, I'm not going to push the envelope. Genesis 5, the way it was written, I'm glad I got the thumbs up. I'm just a preacher. It's always good to ask your local scientist. So Genesis 5, the way the timeline is giving the lifespan, it can give you the amount of years up to the flood. I will tell you, it's nowhere close to millions and whatever years. So God was so upset by that time. So let's say, I believe it was 1600 and something years, but anyway, I didn't do the math lately. Whatever the amount of years were. It was less than 2,000 for sure. God was to that point that he said, you know what? You guys have went so out there that there's only one person, one family on the whole planet that believes in me. Everybody else is having a good time. They're partying. They're talking about their fancy lifestyles, and they're eating and drinking and just party all the time, totally ignoring God. And God gives to Noah this promise. I want you to build an ark because I'm going to destroy the earth. You know what the people did? The people laughed. And I always let's say there was a Home Depot. You go to Home Depot or Lowe's, and Noah has to walk in there and say, hey, I need some gopher wood. I'm building an ark. Could you imagine that? What's an ark? It's a boat. What's a boat? Now, I'm just using my own imagination, but the Bible has not mentioned rain up until this point. There's some mist, and there's some other ways that maybe it did rain, but it's just not mentioned. So he's building a big boat that's going to house lots of animals. It's huge. And he has about 120 years to do it. That's it. Imagine that. You got the instructions for building a boat that you've never built before. He builds this ark, yet all the people, imagine Nathan being a preacher's kid himself, Grace and Hannah going to school and saying, oh yeah, my dad's a preacher down the street. Your dad's a preacher? He believes that fairy tale stuff. Imagine going to school. Yeah, my dad's the guy building the big ark out there. Really? Your dad believes in that fairy tale stuff? Isn't that crazy that it just seems weird to so many people? It just seems weird for anything that we believe, anything that we do, and then nobody wants to believe this stuff when we say, no, God is doing this. God is telling me to build a boat. God is telling us that the world is going to come to an end. God is telling us that Jesus is going to come back, and it ain't going to be all huggy stuff going on. When Jesus comes back this next time, it's Judgment Day. The reason I tell you that is because there's a difference between Noah and Jesus' return, because that wasn't the end of the world. That was a new beginning. But when Jesus comes back, it's actually the end of this world, but in a similar sense, it's a new beginning for all the ones who believed. So they're opposite, but they're the same. There's a lot of things that you can study out of the story of Noah that we can apply to the end of the times. And I know people are mocking us now if we use the ark as the place where Jesus keeps us protected. There's a lot of people that mock that now. But I'm telling you what, the people that were inside that ark were protected. Christians, we are in the arms of Jesus. We are protected. I know you can be made fun of for that. But the interesting thing is in Noah's day, people were partying, making fun of Noah, making fun of his kids, just totally ignoring God. Any resemblance for today? Yeah. Did you hear about the things happening in the news? Anybody watch the news? I mean, they're taking the Bible out of schools. They're trying to take God out, and they've been doing this for years, but they're actually now getting some ability to make these things happen because of everybody that's in the right places, I guess, for them. But they're calling parents the bad people. We're terrorists. If we said we don't want you teaching our kids anything opposite of what we believe. So we're terrorists. We're awful people. Wow, that's a lot like the people back in Noah's time before the flood came. Now you put it here. The Bible tells us, Jesus tells us, you can't see the signs of the time. You can tell us what the weather is, but you don't know the signs of the times. That's what Jesus asked them. Can we not look around and see that the end is coming? Now, I'm not freaking everybody out. Don't go all, I am not prophetic whatsoever. Just look at the signs of the time. People literally are turning from God in a massive way. Now, I'll also say this. We've also seen people turning to God because they went so far away they realized, oh my, this is not the direction I want to go. But for the world's sake, at first, there was a thing on I don't even know what you call it, like one of those documentaries or whatever, where the CEO for In-N-Out, she was telling someone about why the Bible verse is at the bottom of the cups. Anybody know that? There's a Bible verse on the bottom? Yeah. Everybody in California knows that. So there's a Bible verse. Well, a lot of people don't know how that happened or why that happened. They just know it's there, and the family was Christian. But there's a lot of history to it if you ever want to follow along with that. But one of the people put in a comment below said, well, I just don't agree with these businesses putting their religious beliefs into their business. Just do your business. I'm like, why isn't anybody saying that about the LGBTQ and all the support that these other companies are giving to that? Why aren't they saying anything about the BLM movement? Why corporations are totally backing them, but nobody says, oh, where are these people? Are they silent? But they'll pick on the Christians. Oh, if you're a Christian, you're in business, and you put Jesus loves you anywhere, they're going to say, oh, keep your religion out of it. Well, let's make it just across the line then, right? And then you're basically taking all our rights away because we have to listen to you to say that. So these times that we're in is a great eye-opener to say, what's really going on? Where is God in this? Now look back to Noah's day. Noah gave him 120 years, from what we can calculate from what it says, about 120 years. And then there was that moment. They said, get in the boat. Get in the boat. They entered into the ark. The rain started coming. You hear that? The rain starts coming down. You know what happens? It rained. I'm sure for the first day, everybody's like, are you kidding, Noah? Are you kidding me? All it is a little bit of water. But then about the fourth or fifth day, there's some water on the ground. Sixth and seventh day, eighth day, ninth day, and then all of a sudden, could you imagine being inside the ark, protected, as the people are banging and screaming, because all of a sudden, they want to hear what God has to say. It's too late. God's gave them all these years, plus the 120 that Noah's out there building an ark. Can you imagine what it's like when Noah and his family are in there hearing the bang, and then they can't do a thing about it? I am telling you, not for you to be afraid, but for you to use some kind of scent for your families. Tell them about Jesus. If you're not a Christian, really think about it. If Jesus is not real, God is not real, and we all die, then you were right. Nothing happens. But if there is a Jesus, if there is God, and if the end is coming and the only people going to heaven are the ones who believed, and we die and you find out that's true, there's hell to pay. It's better to make sure that it's because of your investigation instead of your friends that you're making this decision not to follow Jesus. This lady that was agnostic, it was an eye-opener when her niece, on her last moments of her life, it woke her up. She started to think about God. The same thing with people with the ark. They were okay up until the time of the flood. Do you know what it's going to be like when at this life right now, when all of a sudden You cannot buy anything. You can't sell anything. You can't do anything unless you follow the Antichrist. Could you imagine that? If that started happening right now, could you imagine this? That Jesus comes back. And he only takes the ones who believed. Jesus himself talked about his return. Do you know that Jesus never told a lie? There is nothing in Scripture that ever said that Jesus told a lie. I guarantee you that every person that you've ever talked to in your life has told a lie. So Jesus, who has never told a lie and says he's going to return. And then you got people that have told you not to believe in Jesus, or that there can't be a God who's going to condemn everybody and send them to hell. But they've lied before. They've been wrong before. You know, Jesus has never been wrong. Isn't that funny? Jesus, a human. Oh, yeah. But he's God. Never been wrong. I'm going to say that for my own purpose, I'm better off believing in God than believing that there is no God. This lady that called me, and then her niece was in there. The dad had went down to the chapel. He talked with God in the chapel, and then he went for about a mile walk and returned. And when he returned, his daughter died. Remember the prayer? What I didn't tell you about this story was that the daughter had 2 kids and a boyfriend. The boyfriend's an atheist. Very adamant atheist. The kids have been raised with an atheist mindset. They wouldn't believe in God. Wasn't going to happen in that house. So for the chances that the dad's daughter, who is in there, who he is a believer, that his daughter, who's been living with an atheist, the chances that her giving her life to Jesus is probably null to nothing, right? But that man prayed. He prayed for his daughter. And I tell you what, if we stop praying for our kids, we're turning them over to the world. You pray for your kids, even on their deathbed. So when they're in there and the lady calls me back and she says, just want to let you know that she passed away and the dad's right here and we're all right here. And she said, just so you know, it's like a revival here. In this waiting room, everybody is praising Jesus. She goes, I'm an agnostic and I just gave my life to Jesus Christ. She goes, there's no way that I can keep believing in the way that I'm believing. She goes, Jesus has proven himself in this. Wait a minute. You're in a room of people looking at this man's daughter that just died. Your niece just died, and you saw Jesus in that? Yes. Romans 8:28, all things, even death, work together for good for those who love him. His daughter died, her niece died. They're in there and they said it's like a revival. Everybody's praising God. And the dad's like, the only thing I asked was that before God took her, that she was right with him. And the cousin of the girl came over. And she goes, well, let me tell you something. The boyfriend that she was living with, he would never let a Bible or any religious anything, Christian or whatever, be inside that house. But she called me a while back and wanted me to go out and buy a Bible and then sneak it to her. So she's been reading the Bible. Nobody knew except the cousin. They've been talking about Jesus. I can tell you something. When that man went to that chapel and he prayed, and then he went on his walk, God heard his prayer and said, hey, your daughter and I have been talking. We've been working some things out. She's stuck in a relationship where the guy didn't know Jesus, and it was a battle. See, I just know God says it's time for her to come home. She gets to worship and praise me for eternity. There's a revival going on in that hospital because this girl didn't lose her life. She just gained her life. The atheist boyfriend came up to the dad and said, "Sir, I'm a believer in Jesus Christ, and I'm going to raise those two boys in the way of Jesus." One death of one person brought how many that would not even come close to talking about Jesus? Wouldn't even let a Bible in the house. Those two boys, they get to hear about Jesus now. It was the price that the mom paid. But she's in heaven. If that's the scenario that I heard, I can only say that she had been working with Jesus, reading the Bible, secretly getting to know Jesus. Let me tell you something. Noah's Ark is just, some people call it a myth, some call it a story that is made up or whatever. You know the story is actually in the Quran as well. Really? You think us Christians are crazy? I'm not telling you to go read the Quran, but I'm just saying. The story is there. Jesus talked about it. He said, in the days of Noah. Guess what, people? Those days are over. You know what the Bible's been telling us? In the day of the Lord, in the return of Jesus Christ, are we ready, or are we just partying and having a good time and trying to find out, when can I buy my next big house or my next nice car? Or what clothes am I going to go to the store and purchase today? Or are we seriously saying, wait a minute, look at the signs of the times. It's a short time. The disciples said this. They talked about the coming of Jesus Christ again. It's been 2,000 years. Peter said it best. One day to God is like 1,000 years. Or 1,000 years is like a day. I should say that way. For us, it could be 1,000 years, but it could be just one day. One day to God. So it's been like 2 days. He's given us all the opportunity for all of us to get to know Him. That means start praying for your family and friends. Don't be like the people of Noah's day and ignore it. You know what? You got a friend that doesn't know about Jesus? Tell them about Jesus. I'm not saying frustrate them. Just tell them. Just stop giving them like this freedom to just not hear anything. They need to hear. They can make up their own mind. All you got to do is share the gospel. You know, it took one video that I had no control over whatsoever. But God used a video on YouTube that had no clue what was going to happen. I don't even know which video she watched. She called me a few times after that. We talked a few times and had prayer for her son. Her son was still going through some stuff and was able to do that. But the church that we sent them that was in their local area, as far as I know, they kept in contact with them. We lost contact, obviously, over time. But just to know that entire place saw Jesus Are we ready? Are we ready to share the gospel with people? I hope so. Because, man, it's coming. Noah had 120 years and nobody listened to him. Can you imagine that? I think about that in our ministry. Do we get any results? Noah preached 120 years. He even built an ark and nobody would listen. Not one person outside of his family. Not one person in the entire world. Not one person came to God. We're just out to deliver a message. If nobody responds, that's not us. That's on them and God.